Some crimes are so brutal they're remembered for centuries. But then there are the ones so horrifying that even historians rarely talk about them. Ancient history is filled with power struggles, betrayals, secret plots, and unimaginable acts that were hidden away for generations. Today we're digging up the past, from brutal royal executions to entire cities wiped out for revenge. These are the top 10 ancient crimes so disturbing historians stay quiet. Imagine being heir to one of the most powerful empires in the world and then watching your own family turn on you. That's exactly what happened to Prince Bardia of the Achaemenid Empire in 522 BCE. Bardia was the younger brother of Cambyses II, the king of Persia. When Cambyses left to conquer Egypt, Bardia remained behind. But according to multiple ancient sources, Cambyses quietly arranged for his brother to be removed from the line of succession, not by an enemy, but by his own trusted circle. The entire situation was carefully hidden. A royal impersonator named Gaumata stepped in, claiming to be Bardia and taking control of the empire. For months, Persia was ruled by someone pretending to be the rightful prince. When Cambyses unexpectedly died on his return journey from Egypt, Gaumata officially took the throne. But eventually, the truth surfaced, and the nobles of Persia intervened to end the deception. Bardia's disappearance became one of the most secretive royal cover-ups in ancient history, and the most unsettling part is that even now, historians still debate who truly ruled Persia during that very mysterious period. Agrippina the Younger, mother of Nero, is remembered as one of the most ambitious women in Roman history. When Nero became emperor in 54 CE, a quiet but intense wave of purges followed. Ancient Roman historians recorded that Agrippina helped remove or neutralize anyone she saw as a political threat. These include senators, rivals, and former allies of Claudius. The exact number of victims is unknown, and the details of certain incidents were deliberately kept out of official records. But Roman historians consistently reference a period of fear and politically motivated disappearances tied to her influence. A dinner invitation in ancient Carthage might have been the most dangerous thing you could receive. In the 3rd century BCE, Carthage was a powerful North African city that often clashed with Rome. But behind the scenes, its politics were dripping with blood. Several Carthaginian nobles were accused of plotting against the ruling council. Instead of arresting them publicly, officials decided to get rid of them quietly. According to Roman sources, the nobles were invited to a lavish banquet. The wine flowed, the food was extravagant, and everything was laced with poison. One by one, the guests began convulsing and dying at the table. Servants burned their bodies that night to cover up the crime. Officially, these men disappeared, but in reality, they were executed in cold blood by their own government. The story was nearly lost to history because the Carthaginians didn't keep written records of their internal crimes. It survived only because Roman spies witnessed it. In 335 BCE, Alexander the Great led his army into Thebes after the city rebelled against him. What followed was one of the most brutal ancient war crimes that even Alexander's supporters tried to downplay. After Thebes surrendered, Alexander ordered the city to be completely destroyed. But it wasn't just the soldiers who suffered. According to eyewitnesses, thousands of civilians had their lives taken. Over 30,000 survivors were then sold into slavery, and historians of the time, like Plutarch, wrote about the military victory, but most avoided describing the horrors that happened to ordinary families. It was a massacre so horrifying that Greek historians later referred to it only in vague poetic terms. The destruction of Thebes became a lesson to other cities. Cross Alexander and you'll be erased. Weddings are supposed to be a celebration, but in 336 BCE, the royal wedding in Agae turned into a crime scene. Philip II of Macedon, the father of Alexander the Great, was assassinated in front of thousands of guests. The killer was Pausanias of Orestis, one of Philip's own bodyguards. He stabbed the king in the chest just as Philip entered the theater to celebrate his daughter's marriage. But here is the even more chilling part. The assassination was likely part of a larger conspiracy. Ancient sources suggest that several nobles, and possibly even Alexander's mother, Olympias, knew what was going to happen. The bodyguard was killed almost immediately after the attack, ensuring the full truth was buried forever. Official Official Macedonian records framed it as an act of personal revenge, but historians now suspect that it was actually a royal coup. Beneath the streets of Rome lies a labyrinth of ancient sewers called the Cloaca Maxima. Most people think of it as just an engineering marvel, but hidden in its history is one of the darkest crime sprees of the Roman Republic. During the 2nd century BCE, wealthy Romans began disappearing. At first, people thought they'd been kidnapped for ransom, but when drains started clogging, sewer workers made a horrifying discovery: bodies. Dozens of them. According to Livy and later Roman accounts, a group of professional killers operated through the sewers. They would drag victims from the streets through secret access points, rob them, and dump their corpses underground. The crimes were never fully solved. Some of the culprits were caught and executed, but many more vanished. Roman officials avoided talking about the case because it made the city look weak and vulnerable. It was one of the earliest recorded examples of organized serial killings. When people think of lost knowledge, they usually think of the Library of Alexandria. But there was another library that was destroyed under far darker circumstances. In 363 CE, the magnificent library of Antioch was burned to the ground. Official Roman accounts blamed a fire, but multiple witnesses said the destruction was deliberate. Emperor Jovian had just taken power and wanted to purge pagan knowledge. The library held thousands of scrolls, including records of medical practices, astronomy, and philosophy. Historians suspect the library's destruction was part of a larger religious purge. Pagan scholars were rounded up, tormented, and executed without trial. Many of their names were erased from official records, and what makes the crime so disturbing was how much was lost. Whole fields of knowledge just disappeared overnight. The Helots, an enslaved population in Sparta, lived under constant fear. Thucydides records that around 425 BCE, Spartan officials gathered about 2,000 Helots who were considered the bravest and the strongest. These men were promised rewards, but then disappeared without a trace. Ancient sources state this was a planned act to prevent uprisings. The exact details were deliberately hidden by Spartan authorities, but the disappearance itself is historically recorded. Sometimes the most dangerous crimes happen behind palace walls. In the 1st century BCE, Berenice IV of Egypt seized power while her father, Ptolemy XII Aulete, was in exile. To secure her throne, she forced her sister to marry a political ally. But when that ally betrayed her, Berenice decided to make an example out of him. She had him executed publicly. But she didn't stop there. According to surviving Egyptian and Roman accounts, she ordered the corpses of several of his supporters to be displayed in the streets for weeks. When her father returned with Roman support, he unleashed a wave of executions in retaliation. Thousands of people were killed in a matter of days. Egyptian scribes avoided recording the details, fearing punishment. Most of what we know comes from later Roman historians who were shocked by the scale of the slaughter. In 154 BCE, during the Han Dynasty, Empress Dao moved against a rival branch of the imperial family led by Liu Wu. Accounts from Sima Qian in the records of the Grand Historian confirm a large-scale political purge. Many members of the faction were executed and his power base was dismantled. Later accounts added dramatic elements, such as the events occurring at a wedding banquet, but the core fact that there was a major bloody power purge ordered by Empress Dao is historically supported. The massacre solidified Empress Dao's power and sent shockwaves across the empire. Most historians avoided going into details for centuries because criticizing the royal family could cost them their lives. Alright guys, that's been our list for today. Thanks so much for checking it out. I've been your host today, Livy Kozlowski, and I will see you again soon. Goodbye.